We're going to talk about so many different things today that I know are dear to you. One of the things that is sort of timely for those people who are listening right now. One of the things is people are creating content and they're taking a stab at having a podcast. And one of the things that you model, that you've said so many times to your community and to me, is, I do my podcast by just taking a walk. And I just talk into my phone. Literally. And I just share what's on my heart. And it's so visceral. Like you can hear the leaves crunching under your feet. Yeah. I want to talk about that as a whole paradigm shift, that the way you do content is so close to your heart. You don't have to be this persona for a second. Let's talk about what that means to you and how people could maybe take a page from that book, because I think there's a lot of this mythology around, well, as soon as I go to create something in a business or that's content, I need like all this professional gear and I need this preparation of a certain kind. And it's like, you've been preparing to be you every moment of your life. You are prepared. Like you are prepared to be yourself, but we don't necessarily think about that as an option. And your whole business is coming from your heart, which is why it works so well. So talk to us about that as the paradigm in which you work from.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a series of decisions, it's like these inflection point moments of how am I going to move forward? And I have the equipment and I have the gear. But what I find is I just can't sit here by myself and stare at myself and record a conversation. I need to move. And so I think it's important to also note though, that there is a certain part of me for a long time who's felt, related to the pod. And I've had a podcast, you guys, it's also important to say, since April of 2016. So I have recorded a podcast every single week of my life since April 2016. My show has had like 4 different names. Right now it's called Ignite Your Dream. And it's great. And I love it. And I just don't even care. Just call it like podcast. Just come and let's have a conversation. Like it just doesn't matter. We can really belabor these things. And I think for me, I have this higher sort of like understanding now, which the only way I got to that was by thinking I had to do it like this and say it this way and have it be perfect and nail all the things. And then that just got too tiring. I think that's it. It was like, it just got too tiring. So the answer was, the question was, what do you need to do to get out of the way so that the message can come through and you can just talk to the people that you're here to talk to? And what I realized was, I do Voxer coaching with clients on occasion, and I really love doing that. And the stuff that comes out is like gold. And I love to walk and I want to move as much as I can. And I live in the woods and I'm literally like most of the time just walking barefoot outside in the woods, recording podcasts. And it just feels so amazing. And I just do this. Everybody always asks, I'm like, no, there's no microphone. It's just this. It's just my phone. I mean, there've been times where it was like pouring down rain and I had my phone in my sleeve and I was like, it's coming through. I got to finish this. And my beloved husband, who's a podcast producer, he has clients of his own. And I'm like, honey, I know I'm probably the most challenging with all of my weird sound effects in the background, stopping for cars to go by, all these things. But like, just thank you for your patience, because this is the way that I do it. And I feel like I'm just walking with my community. I'm just walking with you when I'm having this conversation. We're like on the road together talking about these deep things. And of course, with my guests, I do it sitting in this chair properly on a Zoom. But when I'm doing it by myself, it's just me and the trees and my dog. And we're just walking and having a conversation. And it's the most authentic, most effective way for me to get this information out with whatever's coming through. And I really enjoy it. It's a really fun practice.
I mean, it's such a mic drop for people because we don't realize how much unconscious stuff we carry. And there is this, I don't know if it's like residual from going to school or things our parents modeled, but there's just sort of this barrier to entry around how we need to be buttoned up in a certain way for something to be good. And there is this like way in which we don't even realize there's this option of walking in the woods and talking into our phone. And similarly, what that really points toward is the intimacy that you are a ninja at creating with any human and any animal that and any tree that you connect with. It's so palpable, and it's what is the magic about you. And that's really the subtext of all of this, is that it's about getting to the intimacy. So it's not about all the things that don't matter. It's not about your PDFs. It's not about your graphics. It's about the intimacy that you can create because of your heart, because of your courage, and because of your heart. And so let's talk about that, and how intimacy is really the driver of your work and the driver of your business, how you lean into that, because I think that is our greatest gift to humanity. And we often outthink ourselves by requiring things that are actually not impressive at all, and thinking that those are the things that are going to somehow help us as a leader or a business owner. And really, it's a distraction from what you have within you. And you do that probably better than anyone. So let's talk about how you lean into that intimacy, and what maybe people can learn from it, because you coach thousands of people. And how do you see them come to you with that, and how do you help them unlock so that they can allow that to be what drives them, because we all have that capacity.
Yeah. I mean, intimacy is really like, when broken down, it's like into me see. And I feel like for all of us here, we all just want to be seen. We all just want to, it's like at the end of the day, that is like the deepest heartbreak. Like how many times have you and I had our intimate chats where we're both like crying on the other end about whatever's happening in our story. And we're like, can't you just see me? Like whoever we're saying it to. And usually we're saying it to ourselves, we're saying it to ourselves. And we've been so conditioned through our trauma, through our childhoods, through, just the way we were, like life. I don't even have to get specific here. Life will lead us down this path. And I think this world of creating content and being an online persona, it leads you away from yourself. And it's very alluring to think that it's going to be easier if I'm just less of me, when it's actually the opposite. And so my focus is, how can I minimize the separation that I'm putting in place to keep myself quote unquote safe? And what is that actually founded in? And so when I work with my clients, it's like we get in there to look at, like, where do they feel unsafe? What is that really about? What is it connected to help them turn the light bulb on and illuminate that part of themselves that they've been ashamed of, that they've been afraid of for so long? And what I've learned in my own studies and working with my own mentors is that, shame, and David Bedrick says this, I love his teachings. He says, shame is a witness. And what shame does, when you feel what shame is doing to you, it's actually shining a light on a part of yourself that needs more attention and needs more love. And so when I ask my clients, like, what is the thing you're the most afraid of? And I love, if you're up for it, y'all, like, just pop in the chat for me. What is that thing for you? Like, what are you afraid is going to be found out? Or what are you afraid is going to be seen? Or what is that glaring insecurity that comes up for you? And what I've discovered when I'm honest about that, and I will say it out loud, and when I'm working with clients, it's like the scientific method of exploring this, not only personally, but also with my clients. What the real medicine is for it is to be more of that, like to go into it even more and look at it, because it's trying to give you something. It's trying to tell you something, right? It's like, oh, there's so much wisdom in that cavern of exploration of what you've been not wanting to see. And it's like, it never stops gifting me new information, Kath. It never stops making it safe for me to be more of myself. And what I realize is, like, this big thing I built up that I felt like I had to be able to do is just way too exhausting, because it's not me. And I'm so relieved to release that weight and to just exhale into the fundamentals and the truths of me. And so now my business is, built in that way. And I'm still, like, always moving things around, but it is about intimacy and creating environments for clients to relax into the truth of who they really are. and bring more of that forward, because the world has enough of the sort of like diluted copycats of other versions of people. Like there will never be another Taylor Swift. Like let her be herself. Like she's incredible. We all know it. Please stop trying to be her. Go be your version. There's never going to be another Cathy, right? There's just this one Cathy, and she's absolutely spectacular. And also like the stars shine in the sky next to each other. The planets are illuminated, right? You're not like, this one's better than that one. It's like that one's just closer, further. I get, my brain will go crazy about trying to figure out age of stars and whatnot, but you know what I mean? It's like the whole night sky together, the whole constellation is what makes it magnificent. And that's what we're here to be.
It's incredible. And I know that you have so generously and so bravely told your story a zillion times, and you don't need to tell it. You've told it on my podcast, but I think it's worth mentioning, because I think it's one thing for people to listen to you, and we put ourselves down so much that we look at you and say, you are an anomaly. And if you knew my struggle and if you knew my history, you would know why I'm like stuck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you are a living, breathing miracle, because the amount of ease and the amount of capacity you have to allow in beauty and to trust and to cultivate such incredible relationships and all the yummy treasures in your life are on the same path as the girl who was where you were as a child. This is just further down that same path, which is, it's hard to believe. So I don't know if you want to mention it in whatever way you want to, but that's up to you, just to give people a little bit of context of like, oh, this is a person who we can be sure knows what pain feels like. And therefore everything has a different weight, that you say.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was thinking of a new dimension to my story just the other day and thinking to myself, like, whoa, that makes so much sense why that part is so hard for me. And so the sort of snapshot version, the short version is, I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And when I was 5, I was testifying in court against my abuser, and was in therapy and all these things. And like really the part that was actually more traumatic through that whole story was all of the people saying, you know, she was too young to remember this, like not believing me. And, you know, my mother and my father stood behind me. Blessedly, I had parents that did listen. And I know that's not always the case. It's part of the reason why I've done a lot of work in my adult life of giving money back to organizations that support survivors and support children in education and all these things. It's very important to me that that part of empowering children to use their voices is like worked on and continue to be supported deeply. That's very, very important to me. But I mean, just the people at the court, I could hear them talking to my mother's family. There were people like my grandmother and my aunts and like family members who like turned their backs and said, like, your truth is not acceptable. Like, no, we're siding with the abuser. And so that's like, that'll really mess you up, you know, those dimensions of those pieces. And I was fortunate to have parents that were there, like standing. My mom actually got a law passed in Massachusetts for children like myself. And that's profound. In my teen years, of course, I developed an eating disorder. Of course, I was coping with what I could control. Like, of course, I mean, just, it's like a perfect, you know, fit. And nobody knew, and it wasn't that they didn't care, but they were so mired in their own pain and their own stress and not being able to make ends meet, and life just being so fast and intense. So I think it's important. Like, I was having these experiences, but I was also this child who grew up in like a millisecond. And I had awareness at a very young age. It was like way, way evolved, but it was also a survival mechanism. And so then I had that, you know, and I had this wherewithal and this awareness through all those years of like noticing things and being like, I don't know that it has to be like this. Like, I see other people and other families having different experiences. And so there's like always this little glimmer of like, there has to be a different way. There has to be something different. And I remember very, very distinctly at a very young age, probably around that like 5, 6 mark, feeling like and not that I had a very spiritual or even religious life at that time with my family of origin, but I remember this feeling of like a voice talking to me, and I understood it to be God as a very young child. And it was like, this didn't happen to you for nothing. You are here to help other people. And I remember just being like, playing my Barbies on the carpet and being like, okay, noted. But I'm 6, so I'm just gonna keep doing what I have to do, because I was like learning courage as a 5-year-old. I remember my mother saying to me, like, Amber, have courage. Like, my parents weren't even allowed to come in the courtroom. I was alone in a room full of like, it felt like 60. I don't know how many adults were in, but it's all these adults, and I had to like say my story. And I remember like pinching myself as a little kid and being like, have courage, Amber, don't cry, have courage, have courage. Like, I was 5. What? I can't even fathom my 10-year-old. So I look back on that, and I don't tell this story for like, I mean, empathy, of course, like it would be abnormal if you didn't have that. But like, it's so integrated for me now. As you can see, like my mother will say, like, you can't even imagine, Amber, there was also carrying that for all of my life, like what it's like to be the mother of a child. I was like, I'm the child, but I'm the child, mom, like I get it. And I understand it in a deeper way now as a mother myself, like what a impossible experience that would be. So I just like, it was all such a mess. And it was like a big secret that nobody in my life knew. I remember I did not tell a person about this part of my life until I was like in my 20s with my first love, my first boyfriend. And so I also carried that, all those years. And I knew what it felt like to completely hate myself. Like I absolutely hated myself for my teens all the way into my 20s. And I remember when I was around 29, 28, I had gotten married when I was 25 to my college love, and I just knew like pretty quickly that the vision of who I was supposed to be in my life wasn't going to be possible in this marriage. And I had to get this divorce like fast. And it was hard. It was like the least popular decision I could have ever made. It's like everybody was at our wedding. It was like such a thing. And it was such a crush. And I felt like the biggest failure, and I was completely alone. At that point, then my own mom wouldn't talk to me for like 6 months. It was so hard, you guys. And so I'm just sharing, like, these are just little tiny bits, right? And like, we all have our hard, and we all go through these like really challenging things. But I remember when I was 29, I went to therapy for the eating disorder, because at this point I couldn't like open the refrigerator without crying. Like I was so overwhelmed about food. I was over exercising and under eating, restrictive. It was like just this equation that was handling all of my anxiety and all of my tension. And I remember sitting in the chair, and she was like, you have an eating disorder. And I thought, it's really interesting that we're like having this conversation and you're putting this label on this. And I don't disagree with you, but I'm also not going to take it. I know what I'm doing, and this is a coping mechanism, and I'm going to work on this. And what I knew was the only way to get through that was to start turning love back to myself, and to start being compassionate with myself, and to start being softer and more loving with myself. And it was the hardest battle, honestly, I think, of my whole life, to like cross over that threshold. But what got me there was knowing, this is when I was 29, knowing that at some point in my life, I would be a mother, because it was my biggest, longest dream of my life. I wanted to be a mother. And I thought, I will not carry this baton across the threshold. I will not pass this along to my daughter. I knew I was going to have a little girl, and then 2 years later, I went through a fertility treatment. Very like, it was just kind of like, I got my period back after years of not having it. And then my doctor was like, okay, we're going to start now. And I just remember being like, oh, okay. Like just going through the motions. And then like, I got pregnant, and I knew that was God's way of basically like saving me and like locking it in and saying, this work was not for nothing, sister. Like, you are here to do this. And so my 30s was where all of it all happened, and it coincided with motherhood. And it was such a healing journey. And it has been. Been a mom for 10 years now. And yeah, it hasn't been an easy road, but I also think it's the most authentic road, because I did the work. And I remember days like waking up, you guys, I couldn't even get out of bed. My eyes would open, I'd immediately start attacking myself. I couldn't even put my feet on the floor before the attacks would start. Back in my 20s, I'd walk over to the mirror. By the time I got there, I'd already taken myself down. And I remember this moment through the therapy of saying to myself, you, my love, are not going to be able to use mirrors to get ready for work today if this is what you're going to do with them. And I had to like have these boundaries with myself. And it was like, I had to really hold the line. And it was like, I'm going to pack the food the night before. And then this is what you're going to have the next day. And this is it. And it was like, I had to be like, have tough love with myself. It was like very, very supportive, but it was very difficult because I had to kind of like do it by myself. I didn't have somebody that was like there saying, you know, you got this. I had people that loved me in my life, but they did not understand what was happening inside of me. And I had to choose me, and I had to do that inner work. And, you know, I still sometimes have hard days with myself, but I have so much compassion now, and I'm so grateful. And I think I care so much about the people that I get to help, and I really know what it feels like to be there with myself. And so I can kind of flip the switch fast because it's not a great use of my life force at this point anymore. A better use of my life force is to love people and to turn whatever's happening here, alchemize it into love, and then have a conversation in a meaningful way, even if I feel like it's messy, even if it feels imperfect, even if I feel like it's not good enough. You know, I just say sometimes, you know what, like it just has to be good enough today. And it is. It always is.
It's profound. It's the only word. It's so profound. Every word you share, how you share it. And the reason I'm particularly so grateful that you share it is because what your story illuminates is so many things. And one of the things that it illuminates is what happens when somebody is willing to look at the unconscious program that gets in our way and to say, now I have dominion over this. I will not let you run this program.
That's right.
I am bigger than this shame. And your story in particular is absolutely horrifying. I have heard it. I still well up with tears. Many people who were listening were just in tears because, as you said, that empathy is instant. And so many of us, whether we've gone through similar things or we haven't, we can feel the edge of that. And it's enough to make us just weep. And at the same time, because we all have our own battle with our unconscious mind and shame, to hear how somebody did that at an Olympic level, you did that at an Olympic level.
Yeah.
You know, there's the diving board on your pool, residential pool, and then there's the high dive. That's the high dive.
Yeah.
That is the Greg Louganis, you know, gold medal high dive version of looking at what you've been asked to hold and sorting through it and not allowing the toxic element to be the voice in your head.
Yeah.
And no matter what the story is that we've all walked, we are all being asked to, in some shape or form, show up for that assignment. It's not always a high dive. And yet it's the same assignment to our own extent, which is why when I said before, you are literally a miracle, it is a miracle. It is miraculous that you have such an open heart. It is miraculous that you are so generous. It is miraculous that you have come to love and be loved. It is miraculous that you have allowed yourself to become a master manifester of co-creation and build a beautiful home on the most beautiful pond and have 2 gorgeous children and a loving, equitable, happy, balanced, thriving, normal. And I'm saying normal, not about sexual stuff. I mean, meaning you guys have your quirks too, and it's all good and you weather that. That's what I mean. And all of that's a miracle.
Yeah.
And on top of it, you've been able to allow yourself to have plenty, to have the means to travel first class when you want to, and go see the bands you want to, and take your kids on gorgeous trips, and contemplate buying a second home in warmer weather. Miracle. And when we see miracles like that, it's a reminder that that is possible in this field of reality. And so I just want to say it is such an honor to know you. And I'm always amazed. Like always. So with that being said, you coach thousands over the course of your career. You've coached thousands of people, spoken to thousands of women. When you're looking at them from where you are, what are you wishing you could just take and set down for them? Like, what's the theme where you're like, but my love, I do get it. And I wish I could just take this and set this down for you, but I can't. That's your work. But what's the thing that they keep holding on to that for you, this is in your rearview mirror, and this is important for us to be able to design the life of our dreams?
Yeah, there's like a filter of other people's perceptions, projections, stories about them, etc., that keeps them from just being fully embodied and being all the way themselves. And, I think that's probably the most common thing we hear across the board. And I know that's what goes on with your folks as well. And it's like, I always say this to my clients. I say this kind of jokingly. I'm like, okay, well, who's the first person that comes to mind that you're worried about? And now here's my second question. Would you trade places with them? Like, do you want their life? Because if you do, then, heed what they're saying. And then they always go, no, no, I love my life. And I say, isn't that such a wonderful, miraculous thing that you've lived through what you've lived through and you love the life that you have. And so what does it look like to share that and to enter that? And I also like to play this little game with my clients. And I want to throw this out there for y'all to think about, like, if you could pick like 3 or 4 different people, whether they're entertainers, authors, musicians, podcasters, coaches, neighbors, who cares? Doesn't matter. People in your world. And you could just like put them all in a little pot and mix them up together and like take the best of that inspires you, right? Like drink that little potion and it'll cure you of your own insecurities of your thing. I think about like, who are those people and why? Like get in there. Like what do you love about Cathy Heller? I mean, it's like a freaking really long list, one of those big scrolls, and like Santa drops the things, like rolls all the way. It's like that, it's like a huge list. But what do you love about like Jonathan Van Ness? What do you love about like, I don't know. I think about my favorite author, Mark Nepo, like all these things. Like, what do you love about these people? And then pluck those little apples off the tree, because those are the elements within yourself that you just get to be more of. And you're going to feel a little scared, but that's why we play brave. And that's why we talk about courage. And it's like, bring more of that forth, because that's what actually magnetizes people. And what I see happening, people think my marketing's not working and my strategies and it's like, oh honey, it's just not that though. It's like, you're just not showing them the fullness of you. So they're not actually getting the signal. It's like, when you're somewhere and your phone is like only one little bar and you're like, it's just not working, and you're holding it up. It's like that for the people you can't connect. We want to get on the 5G. We want to get on the LTE. We want to like send the signal out. And the way you do that is by bringing more of your magnificence, more of your weirdness. Yes, your quirkiness, your like, and I think all the things that make me really me, this is the part where I feel just so liberated. And going back to the earlier conversation we were having, if somebody doesn't like that I record my podcast walking barefoot in the woods, or that I have like a million cats and I just like want more, that I am pretty like direct and sarcastic, I'm a New Englander, but also like deeply loving and deeply passionate. And, if you don't like love that I bring out my Division I athlete sometimes to like lovingly kick your ass to do the thing you have to do, then you might just not be we may not be the right people. And that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. There are plenty of other people out there. But when I'm not that, guess what? Like nothing happens. When I don't let the full wave of myself come forward, it's like there's no signal. And so that's what I would love for all of us, is to like LTE this shit and like, let's go, turn the lights on, friends, because I'm looking at some faces here, like these amazing humans and souls are here to do really big work in this time space reality, not like 10 years from now, not in the next lifetime, like right now, with these podcasts that we have and these little magical devices that allow us to share our message with the entire world with the click of a button.
That's an amazing, that could be a TED Talk. That's an amazing piece of wisdom. And I love the analogy of the Wi-Fi. It makes it really clear, this
Yeah.
sending that fullness of the signal, like get it all, not just like a little bit.
Yeah.
When it comes to, and for the purpose of time, since we're not here for as 12 hours and on, which I would love, but we're here
Yeah,
for an hour.
we could
So
totally do that. If anybody could, it's us.
it's us. But one of the things I want to jump to is the scarcity, because you are teaching right now
Yeah.
about allowing that more healthy, more vivid experience of wealth and abundance into our lives. And I think you and I have a shared value in common. And therefore, when people come into our spaces, they want to hold on to being loving and generous. And there's a part of their mindset that tricks them into believing that in order for them to be grounded and kind and loving and empathetic and humble and all those things, that there's something about money that doesn't quite match that picture.
Right.
And that's so sad in a sense, because the more you have, the more you can be and give and more opportunities. So what are some of the things that you've come to see that are really available to us? And what are some of the impediments to us allowing that into our life on an abundance level?
Yeah, I think what I've learned is that I grew up with a lot of programming about money. And so I just believed that, I just believed that that was the way it was. It was like the state of the world and the reality. But I mentioned to you, as a small child, I used to think like, but I don't know, this person and this person and this person. I was always in that curiosity. And so then as I got older, I just started learning and studying and reading books and learning about other people who were having the levels of success that I was feeling called to understand and feeling aligned with for one reason or another. And it's like, I also have a really big calling on my life, and I can't do that with like 2 pennies,
Yep.
I need to have resources in order to answer the calling. And I want you guys to get that if you feel that desire for more resource for your life, it's not a selfish thing. It is actually intelligence. It's a form of intelligence. And I really believe, our dreams, here's the thing about visions and dreams, they come before the resources every single time, right? We think it's the other way. We're like, well, I have this dream, but like, I need to wait until everything's there. And it's like, but babe, that's not how it works.
Right.
You have to get in motion. Like, yes unlocks how. You have to say yes to the dream. And I just think about the equation of your life for a second. Everybody here, every important thing you've done in your life, every single important dream that's come true, you did not know how you were going to do it every time. But isn't it hilarious that we still think, like, after doing this how many times over, we come back to this because we want to be certain, and we want to make sure that all of our ducks in a row, we want to be responsible, yada, 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 yada. It's like, well, who made that up? Who defined that? And so I think that this first piece is like, we have an infinite wellspring of wealth, connections. I just got an invitation. I haven't even told you this, Kath. But in December, I'm going to Scottsdale to record a training for Tony Robbins' audience. 50,000 people. I just got a text from one of my former clients who's the director of marketing, and she wants me to come teach their community. And I'm like, what is life? Like that, I could never have even thought that was going to ever be a thing. Yet Tony was a teacher for me along the path that was like highly important way back when.
I love that will stretch you, because 50,000 people is a lot, and it's fun to do it live.
It's a stretcher.
It's really cool. They do it live, but also you are such a blessing to him. I mean, the fact that he gets you, it's like,
I'm excited.
Boy, do they know what they're doing to have Amber involved in their little sphere over there. What a gifting you're giving them. So anyway, that's amazing though. I get the point. It's not lost on me. I had those tapes, like Unleash the Giant Within. I was listening to that, Awaken the whatever it was.
100%. million years ago.
He's great at that.
Yeah, he's like so good at like the hype, and it's so good. And so I just think the best things in our lives, like like Cathy and I could not have planned to meet each other and have our souls fall in love with each other the way they have. Like, the best things in your life you did not plan. Take that in for a second. And so do you see how this equation is kind of coming together? Like, if the dream is in you, it's for you. You have a dream in you. There's something that's tapping you, and you keep fighting it because you're like, well, I don't know if I have enough money. I don't know if, and it's like the dream. I literally get this visual of God being like, hello, like the dream is enough. Like, hello, did you miss the memo? What you're here to do? Who made this up? How do you even have the dream that you have? I mean, that's another fun question to play with. Like, you can't make it, just happens. Like, think about your dreams. I mean, I had the visual as a 5-year-old of myself speaking on stage and writing books. My 5-year-old wasn't like masterminding in a room with their Barbies. Like, I had the visual of myself doing that, and I didn't understand any of it, but hi, this is my life, and I'm doing it. And so I think that, question your programming, loves. Question the belief systems that you have. When you have a thought come up and you're like, I can't do that, I'm not there yet, money doesn't grow on trees, whatever that is. I mean, it actually does. So also, we should question everything because it's made of paper. But where are those beliefs coming from? And do you actually still want to co-sign with them? And that right there, that work takes a little bit of time, right? You have to like actually sit with it and kind of think, that's so silly that I actually still believe that. The quantum shifts happen in the getting quiet with yourself and plugging in to whatever your source is and listening for the inputs, and then spending as much time as you can in each day, like doing that. And so now when I get a moment of anxiety, or I get a moment of feeling scared about money, or something like that, or if I kind of get back into one of those grooves, I just replace it in that moment with the vision of what it is that would be like my ideal scenario, what would feel so good, what would be so exciting. Because I know the power of vibration, the power of energy, the power of magnetism, and what happens as a result of it. And it's like, well, this is a silly way to spend my life force worrying about something. It's like such a useless expense of all of the magic that I have within me. Let me plug this in to the vision. And then what happens is you kind of play with the vision, you start seeing things. And that's when the questions come up, like, oh, well, then how would I do that? If I want to write a book, well, then where do I begin? If I want to have so-and-so on my podcast, where would I start with that? So it just changes your entire perspective and your entire orientation to one of abundance, of moving forward, rather than being stuck in past programming, which is just really not very helpful with where we're trying to go.
It's so good. Somebody asked a question in the chat, which is like, so should I, fund my dreams then on a credit card? Do I charge my credit cards in order to live my dreams? And I want to comment on that, and then I'm going to ask you to comment, but to give you a moment to catch your breath, I I'll just say for myself, no matter where I was at in my life, that wasn't my go-to. So I never had credit card debt. That wasn't my thing. Where I go to is your greatest resource is your resourcefulness. And so if I wanted to do something, like when I wanted to write music, right? It cost money to go in the studio. And those first few songs, I was like, how would I get resourceful? So what I would do is I would cold call to the TV networks, and then I would get the opportunity to pitch a song for Grey's Anatomy. And then I would call 3 producers and say, I have an opportunity to write a song for Grey's Anatomy. Would you give me the studio time? And I'll give you a piece if this song goes. And they'd be like, that's so cool. Because most songwriters, they think they're part of the music business, but really it's a hobby, and they don't think about it like a business. So that was a way that I could get resourceful and get people excited. And then even if the song didn't go, we would write something great, we'd pitch it, and then usually there'd be like a different opportunity we'd be on the hook for and we'd be available for, and then something would happen, and that was really fun. But the point is, I mean, yesterday I was in Brentwood, at literally the biggest house I've ever seen in LA. I mean, the land is like 30 acres of rolling hills. Like that doesn't happen in Los Angeles, right outside the city, right? So it was amazing. And the woman who was catering the event, I walked over to her, I was like, the food's really good. I'm doing an event soon. I'd love to get your card. And I said to her, how did you get started? Because the food was so delicious. And she said, I moved here. And she said, when I got to LA, she was talking about a certain celebrity. She goes, I knew where he lived. So she said, I went to his door, right? I found him on the star maps. And I said to the security guard, there's like 5 security guards, that I had an appointment with him. So they let me in to meet with his house manager. And the house manager said, I don't see you on the books. And she said, I've come to offer 3 days of cooking for him for free. And if he likes my cooking after 3 days, he can hire me. So she went and cooked for him for 3 days, and then he hired her, and she started in that celebrity's home. And now she has this giant business, and she just happened to be there because she was there attending the event, and her staff was cooking the food. And I said, I love stories like that. And so I think that we still don't fully get our abundance. We think that then the answer is like, oh, so then the only option is like, I got to get a credit card out. It's like, no, you are literally sitting. You are sitting on treasure. There is a gold mine in front of you. All you have to do is literally say, this is what I'm now doing. I'm going to be resourceful. I'm going to figure out my way to here. And you show up, right? And it goes back to what you said, Amber. You were talking about who's going to think what of me.
Yeah.
That's the reason she wouldn't have gone to that celebrity's house. That's the only thing that would have stood in her way. How resourceful to say, I'll cook for you for free for 3 days. How freaking smart. Do you know that Gary V's D-Rock, the guy who shoots video for him, reached out to him and said, I will follow you with a video camera for a week. Let me do that for you. Didn't even say, and then you can hire me. What happened? He hired him full time. That's all he does now is go around the world with him, travel with him. It's a huge job. I'm sure he makes multi 6 figures doing that job, right? You don't get it. You don't need Mr. Credit Card. You need yourself. You need resourcefulness. That's what you need. And you have it. Tony Robbins went to, I think it was El Torito. It was like a Mexican restaurant. And he tells this story. You guys have heard this story. And he was in Venice Beach. He had just gotten evicted. He had like $17 left to his name. And he went over and took these $17, which is all he had left after he paid his bill, and handed it to a mother who was sitting there with her son. And he was like, I hope that, you know, this helps you with your meal, with tonight's food. And then he just ran down the beach and he was like, well, it's time to get resourceful. I'm out. I'm all out. And so the next day he called Jim Rohn and said, I want to work for you for free. And Jim Rohn was like, well, if you do a good job, I'll give you commission. And that was the end. Like that was his story, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. It's not about paying 18% on a credit card. It's about understanding how much resourcefulness you have when you get brave. So that's what's always available as an option is get resourceful. You'll start to see the clues. You just forget to see them, right? So what do you think about that when people are like, oh, so what you're telling me is go into debt? It's like, well, that's not what I'm saying.
That's not what I'm saying. No.
What do you make of that when you're like, well, if the dream is in you, then you need to go ahead and start underwriting it, or you need to go ahead and make that step or take that leap. It's scary for people. You know, what do you see that's available on this table that sometimes we don't see in those moments?
Yeah, I love to say to people, the power of creating your own stage and like using the resources that are available to you. And in 2023, we do not get to pretend that we are not the most flush we've ever been in the spirit, in humanity. I mean, my mother did not have the same resources too. So she did have to sell her business to be home with her children after that tragedy happened, right? When I was a young kid, she didn't have the internet. You know, she had a photography company, a business, and she was highly successful and she ended up selling it. But in 2014, when I launched my business and my daughter was an infant, I went for it. I made my little Squarespace website. I put it together. I called myself the brand love coach. This is what I used to do, my little heart hands. And I would take pictures. I'd set up my camera in my living room and take pictures of myself and then use like Instagram filters or whatever on it to like make it look cute. I hand drew my logo and digitized it. I just went for it. And so my first live event in 2017, I just rented a space for the smallest amount of money I possibly could. And actually my first event was in a church basement and 7 people came. And I called it Own Your Happy. I think that's sort of something like that. And I co-hosted it with a friend. And so I think like, this is the thing, you guys, it's that this resourcefulness that Cathy's talking about is so incredibly powerful. And we have to stop waiting for like the invisible gatekeepers, waiting for, you know, when you think about people you want to influence or people with your podcast that you want to have on your show, what are you giving them? Like, what is the value you're offering them? Like, that's how I think about it, right? When I'm going to invite somebody to be on my show. And every time I have somebody on my show that maybe like, they didn't know, I remember I had Danielle Laporte on and she, at the end of it was like, Amber Lilyestrom, you're something special. And I was like, Danielle Laporte, you are too, and we had this like beautiful connection. And I just, my whole thing is like, come on my show and you're going to be completely dazzled by the conversation that we have, because the depths we're going to go to, the questions I'm going to ask you, no one's ever asked you before. And it's an experience every time. And so like, do you see that little like swagger, that little ownership, y'all? We have to have that. You have to find your version of that. So here's what I'm going to invite you into. Think of a time in your life when you were doing something, even if it was like theater when you were a kid in middle school, or like playing the clarinet or something. Where were you like a baller? Where were you like, I'm the best crafter, or I'm like the best kid at making things in home economics class, or I like scored all the lacrosse goals. Like Amber, the soccer player, comes out and she is so equipped. She knows how to, and so I rely on that version of myself when I have to be brave to do things that I'm like, I don't know who the heck I think I am to go try this right now, but I'm just going to go for it. And then I do it, and then, or I get information. But I mean, my very first, I'll say this last thing, way back when I was in my corporate job, I remember sitting on my computer at work on a lunch break, going on LinkedIn and messaging Mel Robbins and saying, I want to do what you do when I grow up. Like, could I have a 10-minute conversation with you just to ask you some questions? You guys, that turned into her inviting me to her house that day with my husband to go film a reality TV show pilot. This was back in before I was a mom. This was like 2011, 2012. I'm at Mel's house in Massachusetts, like helping her produce her radio show that day, like eating lunch with them. She's like, rapid fire coaching me in her kitchen. And we've been connected ever since. But it was like that moment of just making the ask, and then also like adding value, like being somebody. And then they said, we need you. Can you come do it? I was like, I will be there. What do you want me to do? So
it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah.
A friend of mine wanted to be a writer, and it was like, yeah, get in line. How many people want to write TV in LA? So he took a little sandwich board and he was wearing it, and it said, take a script and a donut. And he stood in front of the Warner Brothers lot with donuts and a script that he wrote. And people would just drive by, and some people would just take the donut. And this one guy took the script and called him and then made him a staff writer. And then he's now worked on Malcolm in the Middle, this, that, he's worked on like 5 shows, and he has a huge career because he was resourceful. And you go, oh yeah, but I would never do that because I would have felt dumb. It's like, oh, what a dumb choice that would have been. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If you know the story of Steven Spielberg, or you go and you watch the movie, The Fabelmans, that he made this last year, he literally like walked himself onto the lot and like walked in and like showed his little student film, Amblin is what it was called. And they were like, we have no time for you. And he's like, please watch this, like, why are you here? Why are you on the lot? And the guy watched it and was like, wow, you got something, and then there was like a call made, and then he got his first little job, and now he's Steven Spielberg. But he had to creep onto the lot like a courageous weirdo. Right. And so this isn't about credit card debt. Like, this is not about credit card debt. Like, I am telling you that there's a way cooler, way more important route for you called looking at the world like a really fun game where there's a million treasures hidden, and your job is to use your courage and show up and go get it. And Amber said it, and I'm saying it again. The only thing in your way is that thought of, what will people think if I just show up on the lot? So what? So what? Right? Every single person that you admire did that. That's what they did. That is their story.
When you bring the heart forward in it too, right? It's like every one of the stories you've shared was a person who was like heart in the hand. And like, I just want to help, but this is the thing that I love. And this is what I'm here to do. Like, if I'm not doing this, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yep.
And I'm here, I'm all in. And it's like, that will win every time when you feel that connection, that heart connection. It's why people at the end of my podcast interviews, they always are like, what can I do to help you? What can I do? Like, these amazing friendships and connections have been created from complete strangers. When we got on the interview, by the time we get to the end of it, they're just like, where'd you come from?
Rachel Ray told me she was living in New York City. She got mugged, and she got so freaked out by that experience. I mean, it's pretty scary. She moved back to upstate New York, and she was working at this little grocery store. And she said to the manager, do you think I could do demos of like how to cook with your food in the front of the store? And that's like raising her hand. And then she did a really good job at it. And it started driving people to the store. People started coming in droves. And then a public access station said, can we make a cooking show around you? And then Sherry Salata found her and brought her onto Oprah because she thought she was like so raw and cool and cute. And the rest is history. Yeah. That's what it's called. It's like bloom where you're planted. So these stories are so much fun. And Amber and I are just two people who have our own version of those stories. But let's remember to remember whenever you forget that if you have the courage, there is an opportunity staring you in the face and you need to go and get it. That's your assignment. So Amber, I don't want to keep you because you're in the middle of doing a lot of things this week. Tell people where they can find you, be a part of what you're doing, and all of that.
Yeah, thanks, Kath. So I'm over at amberlilyestrom.com. Please find me on Instagram. Please connect with me there. Like Kath said, I love creating messaging and content for your heart and to encourage you and to uplift. And it's an important piece of things that I do. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, come listen to the Ignite Your Dream podcast. And even if it's just to listen to the sound and say, oh yeah, it's actually pretty darn good. Walking in the woods, having these soul chats. I would so appreciate that. And yes, Kath, thank you so much. I love you. And I love
you for being you
so much. Yeah.
Me too. Thanks. Thank you for coming on. You guys, I'm going to stay on with you a little bit longer, but I wanted to give Amber back to her life and her day and her kids. And thank you so much for today. It was such a blessing.
Thank you, friends. Mwah. Big love to you all, Cathy. I love you.
Love you. Talk to you soon.